Hey, what's up guys? This is Sumner with Heretic Studio, and I'm back in the shop today to show you how to install our behind the grill 30-inch light bar kit on this Ford Raptor. So the first step in this install is we're going to unhook the battery. We're going to be taking this grill out of the vehicle, and we don't want to throw any fault codes when we do that. So to take the grill out, we start with the top and work our way down. We'll also need to loosen these side pieces here, and then we'll review a couple of bolts that we'll need to take out to get the grill out. This trim will also need to be removed. Once we have the grill out, we'll separate the grill from the fins on the back, install the light bar with the light bar brackets, and run the harness as far as we can just outside the grill, and then we'll reinstall the grill onto the vehicle and route the rest of the harness. So when you purchase the Ford Raptor behind the grill 30-inch kit, you'll receive one 30-inch light bar with your choice of either an amber or clear lens, some vehicle-specific brackets, and there will be an optional harness available through the website. So for this install, the tools you're going to need is a basic socket set with socket wrench and extension, a 7/16 wrench, your favorite combination of panel pry tools, some wire strippers, a flathead screwdriver, a razor blade, an 8mm socket on an extension, some crimpers, and possibly a drill. So the first step is to unhook the battery using a 10mm socket wrench. With the battery disconnected, we are now going to start disassembling the grill from the top down, starting with this piece here. And it's held in by these pressure clips, so just separate them, pull the center pin out, and then remove the bottom. There's about 11 clips that you'll need to remove. So after removing the cover, we'll start by taking these 4 10mm bolts out, followed by these 2 clips to release these pieces. That will give us access to the 10mm bolts holding the grill onto the frame. When removing these trim pieces, be sure to pull them straight out. The clips mount straight into the light. So using a panel tool, you can be very careful and kind of pry it off, from the top and the bottom until it's loose enough to pull it all the way out. And you don't need to remove it all the way, just loose is fine. Repeat the same process on the passenger side, and once that's removed, take this trim piece off next. So the clip holding this trim piece onto the center trim piece can be a little bit difficult, so take your time and work the clip out. So the next bolt we'll need to remove is this 8mm bolt right here. Now we typically suggest to use hand tools. Given that one is so far inset into the vehicle, sometimes a drill with an extension will be a little bit easier to get that out. Just be careful not to break any of the plastics. So the final step before the grill comes off, just make sure to unplug all these wire harnesses. And then there's one spray nozzle that you'll also need to disconnect. And then don't forget to remove these zip tie clips from the grill. The next step in removing the grill is to remove the liner from the grill. It can be done by taking out these 3 pins. Here, right here, and down here at the bottom. Now with all of the components removed, it's time to pull the grill off. Just make sure to set it on a soft surface so you don't scratch the grill. So the next step, now that we have the grill off, is to remove the fins from the backside of the grill. This can be done by removing 7 10mm nuts located around the exterior of the grill. There will also be one 8mm located in the center and 4 push pins located around the top. Just be careful when removing the 3 bottom nuts. The plastic is usually pretty brittle and tends to break, so just take your time taking them out. The last piece to remove when separating the grill from the fins is this piece right here. Just grab your favorite panel pry tool, slip it in between, pry it out. Be sure to remove the wiring zip tie harness that's connected to this plastic piece. You can do that by separating the grill, reaching in, and pulling it out. The fins should now be ready to be removed from the grill. You can do that by pulling them directly away from the grill. The next step is to install the brackets onto this plastic piece. So we'll install the top bracket in this orientation, and you'll notice that this hole lines up with a hole on the top, and it lays flat with the face of the bracket lining up with this edge. With that piece in place, drop the hardware in, and now we'll install the bracket that will hold the light bar. This is what the brackets should look like once they're fully installed. Leave them a little bit loose to adjust the light bar. All right, now with the brackets in place, it's time to install the light bar into the brackets. And with the light bar in the brackets, we're going to try and position the light bar as centered as we can in the bracket in both brackets. With the bar centered, it's now time to tighten the 3 bolts holding the brackets on. With the light bar installed in the brackets, we're going to install this piece back onto the vehicle to angle the light bar. So one thing I like to do when I install the light bars as a generic starting place is I'll grab my phone and a level and just make sure it's vertical at 0 degrees. That way it shines straight out. You can always adjust it later if you need to. So then route the wire harness through this opening, and then we'll have it join some other wires and run up to the battery. With the light bar leveled, we're now going to take this piece off the vehicle, install the grill, and then install the grill back onto the vehicle and run the wiring. With the grill reinstalled, it's now time to route our harness. I like to route our harness from the battery to the light bar connector because there's a little opening right here that you should be able to run the connector through. So there's a couple of different ways you can install this wire harness, but one connection you'll have to make is you'll have to connect the red wire to the positive battery and the black wire to the negative battery. You can also run the switch into the cab of the vehicle if your Raptor did not come with the upfitter switches. For this particular install, since this one did come with the upfitters, we're actually going to trim this harness down to get rid of the extra slack and connect it to the upfitter wire. And I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to install this relay. Just like soft routing them right now. So I'm gonna route that here. Route that there. Okay. With our connections at the battery made, we are now going to connect our switch harness to the upfitter wires. Now you'll notice that there's 3 wires in the harness. We're only going to use the blue wire to connect to that. This blue wire connects to the relay, which will connect the light bar to the battery once it's powered on. So I'll show you how to do that right now. So we'll kind of semi-clean up our wiring just so we can see how long we need this to be. Now the upfitter wires are just right here, so if we were to cut this at about that location, it would be fine. Now the upfitter wires, they're typically tucked behind here, so we've untucked them so that we can access them. We're going to use the aux2 wire, which is this green-brown wire. This wire is rated about 20 amps. That's a little bit low for our 30-inch bar. That's why we're going to keep the relay on the harness and connect it to the battery. And we don't want to go and just cut these off because there is actually a ground source in there that we don't want to connect this 12-volt power source to. And then we'll tape and isolate that off. So now we're going to connect our blue wire to our aux2 wire, and we're going to do that using a technique called a military splice. What a military splice is, take your strippers and cut the shielding about a ½ inch apart from itself, and then take your razor blade and cut that shielding off, being careful not to cut the wire underneath. Once that shielding is removed, poke a hole through the center of the wire. And now we're gonna run our blue wire through that hole. Just leave yourself enough on here that you can run that through. All right, with that connection made, we'll seal it up with some tape and then throw a zip tie on it to make sure it never comes off. With the wiring installed, hook up the battery and test the functionality. Cool. With the light bar's functionality tested, it's now time to reinstall all of the panels. Before you reinstall all of the factory panels, just make sure to clean up your wiring. I like to zip tie it to already existing wire harnesses, and you'll notice you'll have to bundle up a little bit, but there should be plenty of room to do all that. With all the panels back on, your install is now complete. Thanks for watching this install video. Check out more like this on our YouTube channel. Also, take a look at hereticstudio.com for more amazing products.